So next up we have Andrea's work, and first of all I'd like to look at Andrea's artist statement. What's interesting about her body of work is she went ahead and did it at a couple different locations. So she got a little bit of a challenge trying to link all of those together. And I think you really reconciled that beautifully in your artist statement where you talk about love being everywhere around you. The one thing that I might add to this is just maybe one or two more sentences about how you saw love being demonstrated in some of these places. And you don't have to be way over the top obvious, but certainly, um, kind of teasing the viewer and making them want to look at it a little bit more, I think would really go a long ways. And especially maybe even just identifying the different places that you were at through that artist statement. Because, again, if we were to hang this in the gallery, I think a viewer would want to know where some of these images were taken. So again, nice job on the artist statement. Just maybe consider adding a teeny bit more to it. So let's look at the goods here. And again, I appreciate you giving me numbers so I can follow along here. Nice job. With all our images, I think that it's important that we have sort of an introductory photograph that tells the viewer what it is that we're going to be looking at. Again, almost an extension of the artist statement, kind of a tease or like a title page for that. So in that sense, this works. Your image here, it maybe looks just a teeny bit out of focus. And I think I can probably explain why that is. Sorry. The camera can only focus a certain distance to an object. So as you get closer and closer to an object, eventually you're going to get to a point that you're too close to focus with a normal type of camera lens. In this instance, we would use what's called a macro lens, which macro lenses are basically specially optically designed lenses that allow us to get in closer than we would be able to with just a regular normal lens. So an image like this, you would want to use that macro lens on. If you notice, actually, it's kind of funny because this card or brochure or whatever that is in the background is a little bit farther away from the camera, and you can notice just how a little bit better the focus is on that. And again, that's just because it's farther away from the camera and probably right at the perimeter of where the normal focusing range would be in that. So like the idea here, just be careful, everybody, when you get in too close to things, you can get beyond where the lens's normal capabilities are, and you'd have to get into using some specialty lenses. A second image, really love this, all the different kind of coats and even different sizes of things. And to me, part of the thing that this conveys is just all the different types of people there are in this world, that these coats almost become sort of a metaphor for the people that are wearing them. Really like it, really like how it's lined up here. We kind of got a little bit of a hot spot or a really bright spot here that, again, in camera raw, I might consider trying to work with. Might be a little bit more difficult to manage here in just our regular camera adjustments here, but I'm going to give it a shot anyways. So I did a new adjustment layer. I brought the area here, brought the curve down in that area, and then I would just take my paintbrush, paint that back on, and then of course we just kind of want to blend it in there. So it knocks that brightness down just a little bit. I think that brightness in the area kind of is a little too hot, I guess, with the photographic terminology we would use. It almost draws too much attention away from the other stuff here. So let's get rid of that one, go to number 3. So in your third shot, we talked a lot about this idea that we want to have some sort of establishing shots or wide overview shots that give the viewer a little bit of a sense of the place. And in this instance, I think you really do a nice job of it. And I think especially my eye is attracted to this notion that kindness is a language that the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And I think, especially when we're talking service learning projects, that's really appropriate. I do feel like this image again is just a teeny bit on the dark side. So again, I can just do a new adjustment layer and change the blending mode to screen. Again, our blending mode is right here. Typically it's at normal, and we change that to screen. And it's just going to brighten that up a little bit. So other than that, I think that's a nice shot. And I actually even love the little bit of motion blur here. Again, I think it adds a little bit of life to the place and conveys this sense that there's activity, there's a lot going on. There's almost a little bit of a frenzy there. So again, the slow shutter can be very effective, and I think you've used it in a good way here. And then this looks like maybe it's an image from over at So Ready, but in any case, we talk about, the establishing shots. Then once we get the establishing shots, we get the medium shots, and then the close-up shots. This would be more of a close-up type of shot where we start focusing in, again, on those textures, patterns, the repetition of patterns. And the interesting thing for me on this is, again, it kind of goes back to that first image of the coats where we have a lot of different colors. And I think it again becomes sort of symbolic for the fusion of all the cultures that we see, especially at some of these service agencies that service clients from different countries and different backgrounds and so forth. So again, I like this, and beautiful image. In some ways, really cool how you juxtapose this checkered tile floor with the patterned spools, or whatever we call reams of cloth or clothing on there. I think that's a really nice juxtaposition between the two. So very good on that. Sorry, my voice is starting to fade out on me here, Andrea. So again, another really nice establishing shot. There's so much going on in this image, but like a few other shots that we saw from the similar place, I think, organizing it along this line here allows the viewer to first go to this person, go to her first, and then we move up along the line and we see them, and then we see that person, and then we see that person. So we experience all these little vignettes as we move along. And I especially love sort of the chaos around the exterior of this table that really almost frames it and kind of simplifies it. It's a really super busy photograph, but I think it's easy to work through and look at because that chaos is sort of organized within a frame. And the stuff that's going on within that frame of chaos is pretty organized and pretty directed. So again, good job with that shot. Then a tight shot of the sewing. And I think maybe one of my favorite images. We've seen a lot of hands sewing here, and a lot of the hands have sort of been dark and wrinkled and so forth. Yet in this image, we kind of get a different perspective here. Her nails are actually done. I think her hands look less worn or less aged, but in a sense that, again, conveys the diversity of the people that work here, that's just not older people, that there's younger people, all kinds and all different types. And I like this sort of framing structure and the exposure. Again, all of those things really work well in this photograph. So I think, again, a really strong image. And love this shot. I mean, this is just a great detail shot. And on its own, I think, this image is really powerful. This as a standalone photograph is interesting, compelling. The pattern of squares are broken up by this sort of free-form, pillowy texture of the pad that all the needles are stuck into. Just really love it a lot. But then we extend that and put it in the whole project. I think it just really then becomes that much more powerful and a really interesting element to mix in along with all of the whole rest of the images. And then looks like we switched again to different service agency. And Andrea, you do really have a good sense of organization in your frames here. And you either consciously or subconsciously really direct the viewer to work through a photograph. So, we've got on the left side of the frame here this bright purple shirt that I think our eye sort of naturally is attracted to. But because of the sort of slight diagonal line that comes here and the way that their arms are pushing over in this direction, our eye starts to work through here. And then, I think we kind of get fascinated by the person here who's got the patterned sweater that's way different than all of the other people here who, are pretty much have solid prints on their sweaters or their shirts here. So again, we see sort of this person here that is a little bit different looking, but of course they fit right in with all the group of the people that are there. Perhaps I'm making an assumption here, but I'm just wondering if these are the volunteers right here and they're helping the other folks in here. Nevertheless, I think this is a great shot, and you just kind of nailed it here with setting this up to really allow our eye to land on one person in the middle of the photograph. I even love this little detail in the upper left corner that says dream. So it's kind of a subtle thing, but again, it adds a little value to the photograph and helps us again understand a little bit more about this place and what their mission is. And then, again, a nice detail shot. Certainly we can use this to fill in any part of the series. I like the fact also that we've got sort of some people peeking over this person's shoulder. I'm just wondering if maybe this might be even that much better if these people were actually engaged in some activity where they were dancing. So you would kind of have a foreground background relationship. People just kind of seem like they're hanging out in the background, not really doing anything. So perhaps we get them doing some dancing or some other type of movement. And then this shot, again, I just love this shot so much. We talk about in the other image how the image was very much framed by all that chaos that was going on. This is almost like the complete opposite of that. This image is really being framed by all of this wonderful negative space, which, again, negative space means empty space around the edges here that really draws our eye into what's going on in here. And then we've got just all these great faces and expressions on everyone's face here, which really makes this a very fascinating and compelling image to look at. Now, it does look like you got a bit of noise on this image. And again, I want everybody to be aware that when we're shooting in camera raw, we do have the ability to work with the noise and reduce the amount of noise here. So when you are shooting, make sure you're shooting with one of those T3i cameras or another camera that has the camera raw feature on it, and then process your images in camera raw and make sure that you select the luminance noise reduction tab and play with that so you get rid of some of this pretty heavy noise that's going on in the background. It's definitely something that's manageable and just needs a little bit of tweaking in camera raw. I also think maybe this image could be lightened up a little bit. Maybe not so much at the bottom of the frame here, but definitely at the top of the frame. So I'm just gonna put a new layer in there, screen it, and then just lighten it up a little bit like that. But notice when I lighten it up, we're really getting that noise in there a lot. So maybe we'll just dial that back a little bit, maybe something like that. So again, before, after. After, I think it's got just a little bit more brighter, uplifting feeling, which I think reinforces that feeling that's echoed by the smiles in all the kids' faces. And then a tight facial shot. You got to have these type of shots in this project. It says something about the people. It personalizes us. It allows us to connect with them. So certainly this is also a great photograph to add into this mix. I'm not going to beat it too much in terms of talking about the noise, but again, I think all of us can see all the noise that's going on here in the background. It's pretty significant, and again, if you're using Camera Raw, you should be able to get rid of a good deal of this noise. So please, if you haven't seen Kat's video, make sure you go back and watch Kat's video. I do a demonstration of how to get rid of noise in Camera Raw. So, good job here, Andrea. Wonderful project. I think that you've got a lot here and a lot of stuff that you should be proud of. So look forward to your stuff moving forward, and just, the noise is really the only issue here, so make sure in your upcoming project and work that you get that taken care of. So look forward to seeing your next set of images. And next up we have Lucian's work, and sorry, I got a squeaky chair here. Lucian's work begins with an artist statement that he kind of takes a little different approach to an artist statement. He writes one individually for each one of these photographs, which, if you imagine it in a gallery, having one of these little artist statements underneath each one of the photographs certainly helps to further tell the story of this place and his experiences there. So, again, I'm not going to read them all to everyone, but I think kind of get the idea just by looking at that and seeing what he did with that. So again, with artist statements, there's really not one set formula for them. They can be approached many different ways, and in this instance, I think it's a really unique and creative way to look at it, and I think one that would work really well if we were to print these up and place them in a gallery. So good start here, Lucian, on that. And then let's look at your images. Certainly perfect opening image. We've got a photograph of the entranceway to this place. We can, really see kind of what a modest place it is and sort of the area that it exists in. I mean, I really love this image because of sort of the sparseness to it. Even, the little cans by the side of the door. I don't know, is that perhaps donation cans that people may have left, or maybe cans that people are using to dispose of cigarettes, whatever the case might be. I think all of that is just, very geometric and, kind of sparse, which again says something about, the way this place serves the needs of the community. The one thing I do see here is your frame is just a little bit tilted. So if you go in and grab the crop tool, and then you just kind of rotate the tool around and use this grid as sort of a guide, and have the grid lined up against the bottom in the photograph, then we get a photograph that's pretty much straight up and down rather than tilting. So just kind of a little thing. Although I gotta say, it does look like the sidewalk here kind of is not straight anyways. But still, even your door was tilting a little bit. So want to definitely address that. Some nice overview shots. We had seen these in some previous images. Another thing that I really want to comment on in your images. We look at this shot here. I talked earlier in Nick's images about getting, a really good range of tonal values from white all the way through black. I mean, this is a perfect example of the way it should be done. The South Buffalo community table is very white. We've got some nice middle gray tones, some light gray tones, some darker gray tones, and then some rich black tones. So really beautiful black and white conversions here, and I think you should be proud of those. The other thing that I think you'll notice here with your conversion that's done with a really nice tonal range is that it really adds depth to the photograph. The blacks kind of are stacked on top of the whites, so it's almost like a checkerboard going backwards. And this creates depth and dimension in our photographs, which I think is really good. Beautiful image, kind of looking at the community table from sort of behind the scenes, but yet still getting, it looks like, the clients in the photograph. And I think the thing that I like about that is that you include the clients here, you include the people that are eating here, but you don't do so in a way that is kind of exploitive of them. They're sort of out of focus. We can see that there's people there, but also we can see that their faces are blurred out, I guess would be the best way to put it. So really like that. And again, another shot here of behind the scenes. You can see how happy these two people are. I again recall that we saw this image previously, and I think it does look like you worked on it a little bit here, and we can really see how those black and white tones are working really well. And of course, the gesturing and expression on their faces certainly really makes this photograph pop out for us. Again, another image, and I like that the subject in here is sort of making an eye-to-eye connection, almost, again, inviting the viewer to come in and join him in helping prepare the dinner for all of these people. And the lineup here, again, we had seen this picture, really nice conversion, although I'm a little bit more apt to, again, kind of work with some of the darks here. This image feels just a teeny bit too dark for me, so maybe just right there. See, now we're starting to get a little separation between the pure blacks and the darker grays in the image. So see, sort of, this guy almost blends right into the background. We don't know where his shirt stops and the background starts. So we just do a little tweak there like that, and bam, you have got a nice image. Another image where you really use space beautifully here. We've got all this empty space and the tables that don't have people on there, and then you just have this one person, and in some ways it says a little bit about her, how perhaps in life she's feeling a little isolated or troubled by her life experiences here, and the empty space that you've created in the photograph sort of is a metaphor for perhaps the empty space that exists in her life. But on the positive end of things, it also, these empty chairs are almost an invitation for all of us to come in and sit down with her and join in her experience and sort of uplift her as we're going along. So, again, really, really strong image. And then your last shot here, again, really like this shot a lot. Just gets a sense of the activity and what's going on in the kitchen. The only thing I'm not super crazy about here is I kind of wish you didn't cut off this guy's head. I think you need to include his head here. Kind of feels a little awkward that he's kind of cut right off at his mouth here. So maybe just pull back a teeny bit and maybe even just raise the frame up so it's cropped maybe down here, but the top of the frame kind of extends up to here. But really, that's just a teeny thing. Lucian, I gotta say, Really awesome project. Really proud of the work you did here. Some fantastic photographs. I think you give us a sense of what it's like to be a participant at this uh, food pantry, and you give us a sense of what it's like not only to be someone that's volunteering, but I think you also, in a couple shots, have in a very powerful way have conveyed or communicated to us what it's like to be someone that relies upon this place for their meals. So beautiful, beautiful work, and I just encourage you to keep up the good work moving forward into our final project. So thank you for sharing these with us.